Dismantling of the Department of Education. This, of course, has been a hot topic.
For some reason in America, education became this behemoth.
Not too long ago, they uncovered $1.3 billion in unneeded Department of Education contracts.
There's very clearly a want to indoctrinate.
I totally agree with you.
We have to step back and say, what is the role of the government and really what is the role of the parents? How will America be great again if the majority of kids across the nation can't read, write, or do math?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Gains for Girls podcast. I believe this is our first episode since Donald Trump's 100th day in office. It really has been win after win after win since he assumed his role as president back in January. I've been able to benefit, of course, lots personally with everything that his administration has done to combat the DEI, gender ideology movement, but even things like immigration, how my family has been able to benefit from a president who is pro-legal immigration, anti-illegal immigration. So really exciting stuff across the board. But as always, grateful you're here. Check us out at OutKick.com. That's where you can find all things Gains for Girls. We've got an exciting episode today. We're going to talk more in depth about some of the wins that we have seen from the Trump administration across the different states as it pertains to parental rights. But before we get into that, with our special guest, got to tell you about today's sponsor. It is Cozy Earth. There is nothing like waking up wrapped in Cozy Earth. They've got buttery soft sheets, breathable loungewear. It's the pajamas I wear every single night. They don't just help me sleep better. They've really completely transformed how I unwind, how I rest, and how I recharge. Every night, me and my husband shamelessly slip into bed and we instantly feel calmer. It has turned our home, Cozy Earth has turned our home into a true sanctuary where luxury meets comfort in every single thread. Since I have made the switch, my nightly routine has changed completely. I sleep deeper. I wake up more refreshed. I feel spoiled every single morning. My family has now tried Cozy Earth after I recommended it to them. They're hooked. They immediately noticed the difference as well. So if you have been thinking about upgrading, now is the time to do it. Cooler sleep, again, unmatched softness, the feeling of everyday luxury, and you deserve it. They have a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty on all bedding with zero risk. Spoiler alert, you aren't going to want to return it. Luxury, it shouldn't be out of reach. You can use my code GAINS, that is GAINES, for 40% off. That's a big percentage off there, 40% off. Again, best-selling sheets, pajamas, and more. Sanctuary awaits for you at Cozy Earth and CozyEarth.com. Today's guest is Tiffany Justice. She is a parental rights advocate. She is an education advocate. She is an advocate for maintaining the innocence of children. She's the co-founder of Moms for Liberty, who has done fantastic work, especially at the grassroots level, having chapters all across the nation involving just everyday parents, everyday moms who see what their children are up against. And Tiffany is now a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation. And I think most importantly, she's a mom of four. I would imagine that's much of her motivation. So check out my interview with Tiffany Justice here. Well, Tiffany, thank you for joining the Gains for Girls podcast. Truthfully, over these past few years, you've been a mentor to me and one of my favorite people to talk to. We've officially made it more than 100 days with Donald Trump back in the White House. So I just wanted to ask you, start us off. What are some of your favorite Trump wins thus far?
I think that moment where we were in the White House and we saw him sign the executive order protecting women and girls in sports, and to see him surrounded, Riley, by all those beautiful young women was just a moment. And, for a president who has been so vilified, right, there's been such a message sent to the American public that he, doesn't like women or somehow is bad to women. To see him surrounded by those kids and protecting their rights and freedom was just, I think it was one of the most special moments. Honestly, I think that picture will go down in history as one of the most iconic moments of President Trump's entire presidency, both last term and honestly this term too.
I totally agree with you. That visual, it means so much to me. And when I think of that, when I see people like Governor Mills who are pushing back against, or I guess what she believes to be pushing back against President Trump, I think of that visual, and who she's really pushing back against are those young girls. She's not fighting Donald Trump. She's fighting those 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old girls who were surrounding him with their big bows in their hair, who have dreams to achieve on the field or the court, in the pool, whatever the athletic setting is and beyond. So I totally agree with you. I wanted to get your thoughts on the dismantling of the Department of Education. This, of course, has been a hot topic really since, Donald Trump campaigned on it, of course, since he has taken office, and now he's taken, swift and decisive action to do such. Can you explain why returning power and funding to states, school boards, parents, and teachers is actually a good thing for a child's education?
Well, first and foremost, parents are the most important part of any child's education. An involved parent is the number one driver of student success. So as much power and control that can go back to the parent is what needs to happen. For some reason in America, education became this behemoth. And I think we know that reason. When the Department of Education was created by Jimmy Carter, it was a promise to the teachers union. And since the Department of Education has grown and grown in Washington, D.C. and satellite offices all over the United States, we've seen the teachers union have so much more power. Riley, when I was a school board member, I was shocked when I learned how much control the teachers unions had on my kids' education. In collective bargaining, things like when the kids would eat lunch were decided. There were parents who were upset because sometimes lunch would be served at like 10 o'clock in the morning. That was part of the collective bargaining agreement that we had in our district. And so it was just shocking to see that. And then COVID happened. And I think all of America saw the teachers union so involved in, school closures or school reopening, the CDC's guidelines, right? Randy was right in there. Randy Weingarten, the head of the AFT, was right in there affecting the decisions that were being made. And so, the local control is the most important. I know we're probably going to talk about that Supreme Court case that was just heard, Mahmoud v. Taylor in Montgomery County. Those are fundamental rights. So there's a role for the federal government in protecting our rights and freedoms and our civil rights like Title IX. But other issues should be left up to local control. And certainly, responding to what a community needs. And every community is going to be different. You're going to have kids who are coming from different backgrounds, who may have different needs, may need different supports in the school. So as much power that Secretary McMahon can give back down to the governors, who will hopefully be listening to constituents, listening to their Board of Education, and really, giving the districts the freedom to meet the needs of the students that they have in their school community, the better off that kids and parents will be. Also, if you have a problem, you send an OCR complaint, an Office of Civil Rights complaint up to Washington, D.C. That's far away from Utah or Washington or Oregon or even Florida, right? And what happens there, this Federal Department of Education? If you have a problem as a parent, you need to be able to go to the most local source and talk to them. You want to talk to the decision makers. So all around, just really, really good for local control to be supported by the president and Secretary McMahon.
Yeah, it didn't take long for those two to uncover that the Department of Education has spent over $1 billion on DEI training since 2021. And now DOJ, of course, they've done a fantastic job across the board, but especially within the Department of Education, uncovering fraud, waste, abuse. I believe not too long ago, they uncovered $1.3 billion in unneeded Department of Education contracts. And so can you give some insight on the state of public schools now? What I find living in a very conservative state, the state of Tennessee, where, of course, we have a Republican governor, we have a Republican supermajority in both the House and the Senate. We have Donald Trump back in the White House. I hear from people all the time who think, look, we don't have to worry about this stuff anymore. We're immune to it because look at who's back in the White House. It's not going to affect us now. Can you just provide some insight on the state of public schools, what we're seeing in states like Colorado, California, maybe some of the other usual suspects, and even some of those unusual suspects, like Texas, for example?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I want to say I love teachers. My mom was a teacher. My grandmother was a teacher. And so I think the majority of teachers are really tired of being tasked with raising other people's children. And there's been this mission creep of public education where they do more than just teaching, reading, writing, and math, but now they're getting into doing all kinds of things for students, including supplying medical services in schools, which sounds really nice, but we have to step back and say, what is the role of the government? And really, what is the role of the parents? And the more the government does for the citizens of the United States, the less they do for themselves. themselves. So we really do need to empower parents. Not only do you have the fundamental right to direct the upbringing of your child, but you have a duty given to you by God and a responsibility to raise your children. And so we always want to support and protect that right and that freedom. In places like Chicago, in Illinois, in New York, in a lot of different states across the United States, you're seeing really abysmal reading and math scores. I'll be honest with you, across the board, Riley, reading and math scores are pretty bad. And I think it really is this, this idea that the public school should be doing everything for a child. And, no one entity can do everything for a child. And so, except for the parents, if they choose to do that, right? And so, for those that can homeschool, great. But for those who partner with their public school in educating their kids, that this lack of focus on reading, writing, and math, Cade Brumley would say, let teachers teach, right? Let them get back to really engaging with the students in the classroom. Parents are watching as their kids return from COVID, a lot of technology in the classroom, not supplementing what the kids are learning and enriching their learning, but really supplanting the role of the teacher in the class, taking the place of the teacher, right? A lot of those programs, especially in middle school, I've seen that school districts, kind of invested in during COVID to try to meet kids in what they call virtual learning, which I say is complete nonsense. It really wasn't happening. It didn't work for the majority of students. But a lot of those programs have continued and teachers are becoming babysitters. And that's really concerning because we know direct instruction, the teacher engaging with the student directly, is the most important thing. And so a lack of focus on the basics has led us to this moment where we really, I believe, have a national crisis. How will America be great again if the majority of kids across the nation can't read, write, or do math?
That's right. And with that lack of focus on the basics, again, math, reading, writing, are we still seeing this infiltration of what most people accurately, I believe, label as indoctrination in the form of the sexualization, the books in libraries, different things like that, the flags being hung in classrooms, what can only be described as activists who are in these powerful, authoritative teaching positions?
Yeah, and it's not like you can take your kid out of public school and put them in private school and think that everything's going to be okay. There is an intentional drive to sexualize kids. I don't know why. I mean, if you're a religious person, you're going to say there's an evil that has taken over in the world. And certainly taking the innocence of children is evil. We used to know that there was such a thing as like age appropriateness. I think we still do. There are movie ratings, for example, right? R and PG-13, we know that there are certain subjects, maybe PG-13 is okay for kids over 13, right? But under, really questioning some of the content. Even places like the American Holocaust Museum has an exhibit for 6th grade and up, a separate one for 4th and 5th grade. And then has another exhibit, under 4th grade, excuse me. They say, really, maybe this isn't subject matter that the kids should engage with. And so I think that we need to get back to knowing and understanding that kids are different than adults. They're not just little adults. They have different minds. They develop differently. They can handle different subject matter in a different way. And there's certain subject matter that really children don't need to engage in. And so I just think it's an interesting moment we find ourselves in America, and it's up to parents to really draw the line and to say, listen, these are our children. We will not let you rob them of their childhood. It's a beautiful time of life, right? Which should be exciting and fun, and you should be learning about lots of different things and being curious. But the idea that the most interesting thing about elementary school kids, middle school kids is that it's their sexual orientation or the sexual orientation of their teacher and how the teacher feels about politics is just nonsense. I think Robert Pondicio from AEI has said if your kids in your classroom, if you're a teacher and you have students in your classroom and they know who you voted for president or they know your political ideology, then you're doing something wrong.
That's right. That's right. Last week, you were in Florida alongside Florida's Attorney General for the announcement of a brand new Office of Parental Rights. Tell us a little bit about this new Office of Parental Rights and what it aims to do.
So there's something called the Pupil Protection Rights Amendment that was passed in the 70s, and then there was a rulemaking process that happened in the 1980s, early 1980s. And what it said was that children cannot be surveyed about political affiliation, sexual orientation, their parents' political affiliation without the consent and knowledge of parents. It shouldn't be happening. It also said that parents should have access to anything that's being presented to the child, any type of curriculum, whether that's curriculum that's normally scheduled for the classroom or supplemental curriculum that the teacher is bringing in. And that's been violated left and right. We've seen that even in a place like the free state of Florida. And I know everybody always wants to say, oh, Florida's perfect, everything. Even in Florida, it's happening. And so Attorney General James Uthmeyer, who was appointed by Governor DeSantis after A.G. Moody went up to the Senate to serve, he has opened an office of parental rights. And it was just amazing to be there for that moment where he said, he realizes it's really expensive if you're a parent to bring a lawsuit against your school district. It's hard to find lawyers oftentimes that are willing to take the cases honestly. And so, you can't get damages. So what lawyers aren't really incentivized to take these cases. And so it's just wonderful that he's opened up this Office of Parental Rights. He really had a message to parents that said, we're opening a portal, send us the information. And as much as I loved the Office of Civil Rights and the DOE opening their DEI portal and wanting to get the information, so that they could go through it and see where to launch investigations across the country. Again, education is really the purview of the state. And so it's just wonderful to see an attorney general standing up for parents. It was exciting to be there. It's the first in the nation. And I really do hope that other attorneys general across the country will emulate James and open an Office of Parental Rights in their state.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I think that would be a fantastic and really smart move. You alluded to this recent Supreme Court case, Mahmoud versus Taylor. It centers on this dispute between parents in the Montgomery County Public Schools in Maryland over the inclusion of these, again, age inappropriate, sexualized, LGBTQ plus themed books in elementary school curriculums. One of the pretty spectacular things I noticed about the plaintiffs in this case, it's an alliance of Muslim, Christian, and Jewish parents. And they're arguing that the absence of the opt-out option for such materials infringes on their First Amendment right to freely express and exercise their religion. You, of course, listened to these oral arguments. Can you tell us what you saw, what you heard more so, and what you expect the ruling to be?
Yeah, so you're right. These parents who used to be able to opt out of this Pride Storybook collection, the school district said, no, too many of you are opting out. It's a real problem for us. So now we're going to take the opt-out away. And they lost in the Fourth Circuit. And so, yes, the Supreme Court just heard that case. It was fascinating. I'm going to say, first of all, Riley, it was kind of vindicating to hear the Supreme Court justices, really just incredulous. Justice Roberts could not believe the content that was in the books. And he engaged with the lawyer from Montgomery County School District and said, well, you have them pointing out leather and sex workers. And the guy said, well, but it's not a sex worker, it's a drag queen. And, Justice Roberts was just like, come on, you want to introduce, this is a book that's meant for pre-K called Pride Puppy. Why the heck, does a preschool kid need to be introduced to drag queens? My good friend James Lindsay would tell you there's a white paper called Drag Queen Pedagogy, where they say that drag queens are an introduction to queer theory. In fact, they want to leave glitter in the carpet. That's literally the words that they use. So there's very clearly a want to indoctrinate. Now, why would the school district not allow opt-outs? There was Justice Barrett brought up, there's a difference between exposure and coercion. And so you're not allowing these opt-outs. And then you're saying, are you saying some people believe X and some people believe Y and people think different things? Or are you saying some people believe X and some people believe Y? And if you don't believe X, you're a hateful bigot. And that was actually what was said to some of the Muslim parents in this case by the school district in the lower courts. They compared the Muslim parents to the KKK or a hate group. And so just this real disdain for the parents' concern. I thought one of the most telling moments was Justice Kagan, Riley. she said that she imagined that parents might have an issue with these books, not just based on their religion solely, but just the age appropriateness of the content. I thought that was really telling. So I think that the parents have a really good chance of winning in this case. I would love to see a 7-2 ruling. Maybe we can get Kagan with us, and it would just be Sotomayor and Jackson who, are not in favor of allowing the opt-out. But there's no doubt that this case is going to be very important for the future of parental rights and education. And I just remind every parent that your parental rights do not stop at the classroom door.
That's right. So what's next for you? You're still involved with Moms for Liberty. Of course, you're with the Heritage Foundation now. So what are some of the next big projects or initiatives to be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I love Moms for Liberty, and I'm still a member of my local chapter, which is awesome. It's the most important part of the work we do, the local chapters coming together, being leaders in their own community, not waiting for someone else to lead. We saw during COVID, it was so important for people to stand up and not wait for somebody else to make a decision for their family, but to stand up for what they believe in. And yeah, you're right. I joined the Heritage Foundation as a visiting fellow. I'm so excited about that because the Heritage Foundation has been an amazing partner to Moms for Liberty and so many other conservative organizations throughout, the past 5 years of working at Moms for Liberty. And so to take what I've learned, the advocacy tools and skills that I've learned and all of the relationships that I've been able to build and to be able to take those to Heritage Foundation and to lead this parental rights initiative, we're going to have a parental rights network. So if anyone's listening and they want to be at the forefront of knowing exactly what's happening in policy and the legal space on the people that are making the biggest difference across the country, we're going to be doing weekly calls there. We're going to have a What's Best for Kids series. We'll have an annual summit where we bring everyone together. And then we'll have some regional town halls. And so I think it's going to be a wonderful opportunity for all of us to get together to really, catapult this movement forward and create a lot of momentum.
That's right. That's right. Well, I appreciate you, Tiffany. Thank you for everything. We will be on the lookout. I would encourage everyone to get involved in the ways that you just said. Really, really important stuff going on. Even with Donald Trump back in the White House, we must stay vigilant and we cannot become complacent. So thank you for everything, for your fight. You've given really so much of yourself, so much of your time. Of course, you have a family, your resources, your own peace. You've made sacrifices that 99% of people would not make to preserve education, to preserve parental rights, and to preserve the innocence of children. So incredibly grateful for you.
Thank you for that. Nobody's going to fight for anything like a mom is going to fight for her kids, right? We'll do anything for our kids. And so it's just been an honor to be able to make the change happen in America that we needed. After COVID, Riley, I said, never again. Never again will we let our kids go through this nonsense and hurt their development so much. And so I'm committed to making sure that, again, never again does that happen.
No way. Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you guys for tuning in to the Gains for Girls podcast. As Tiffany made very clear, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done at the local level, state level, and federal level. Before you go, check us out at OutKick.com. Again, that's where you will find all things Gains for Girls. Make sure you subscribe to these episodes. That way you will never miss one. And go to CozyEarth.com. You can use my code GAINS, GAINES, for 40% off. Again, sheets, pajamas, loungewear, and more. I promise you, you're going to love it. We will see you guys again next week. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. The fight to save women's sports and restore common sense is far from over, and I continue the conversation every week. So make sure to catch more content over here and subscribe to OutKick so you don't miss a thing.